Nomads. I'm your host, Sam, and today we're going to take a look at the jankiest way I can possibly think to use PowerPoint imaginable, and you'll get what it is in a minute. For those who've been following me on socials, during the season, I do hot or not each week. Basically, a player at each position that I think is worthwhile looking at this week, and players I don't. Players I think you should fade. Players I think you should sit. During the pre-draft process, I was thinking about my proclivities when it comes to tier-based drafting, and there are certain players I will avoid and certain players that I really want to leave every draft with. And this is exactly that. I'm doing my initial thoughts. This is being shot on the 17th of July, so a bit early for whole drafts. You're probably not drafting for another month, but during my mocks, these are the players who I just can't get round to. Now, this is in mind of ADP. So I'm looking at taking the tier-based drafting and adapting that to look at opportunity. And opportunity comes in the form of where you draft a player. If a player is being drafted really highly, but I don't see the ceiling, I'm going to avoid them. I'm going to give them a negative mark. If their player is being drafted really late and I think has a high ceiling, I want a piece of that. They're players I want to come away with. That they have intrinsic value to me. Before I get into it, I went over so many players, and I think I had a short list of. Let's have a look here. I can't even see how many because I'm not very good at Google Sheets. But I made a short list of 22 players, and I wanted to give you, I think, 6 on each side of the board, in each side of the view there, who's hot and who's not. That I thought you can walk away with, and you can take and say, this is going to help me in my draft thinking. And I would recommend that this is an exercise that everyone should try and have a go at. Understand what you want to get out, because it's, if you go back through my kind of draft, well, not even draft series, my my series of fancy brain dumps, having a player that you like and you've got invested and you've spent some time looking at makes a really big difference when you're actually coming to play it during the season. I'm going to start off with some honourable mentions, and this is around my train of thought. I won't bring them into the main part of this, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning a few people. Miles Sanders going basically undrafted in the 1601 at the moment on ADP. He's dark throw value, but there's money behind him, and he's playing for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm interested in that. Elsewhere, Dalton Kincaid, been basically written off, was a tight end 1 in his rookie season. Hasn't really gotten there elsewhere, but what else is the competition over there? Dawson Knox, 1207, Buffalo, tight end 14. He's great value, and I think he's got an opportunity to be in that top 12 conversation at the end of the year. Kyle Pitts, for the same reason, currently tight end 18, 1402. He's Kyle Pitts. Yeah, we all want to be hurt again. We all want to go down that route. Staying on tight ends, Terrace Ferguson, undrafted currently. I think who's standing in his way? Old man Higbee, coming from a Rams fan, I really like the opportunity that is befitting him. More tight ends, Mark Andrews. You can tell I spent a lot of time on tight ends here. Tight end 6, much higher. Drafted at the 807, and we'll talk more about, the 909, sorry. We'll talk a bit more about tight ends later, but I think that's great value, that position. Even if he is going to have some touchdown regression, I think it's still fantastic value. If you're getting him that late in drafts, you can build a lot more of your team around him. Wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 306. I think wide receiver 17, because we see a lot of wide receivers going early. This is a 12-man PPR style format. I think he represents great value, and he's one of my league winners for a reason. DK Metcalf, 409, wide receiver 23. Way undercooked, in my opinion. He's never had a season that bad. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 36. Is he a wide receiver 3? No, he's a wide receiver 2. And he is being drafted as a wide receiver 36, 606 in most 12-man drafts. Just behind him, Jacoby Myers, wide receiver 40. Great value. He's the number 1 target behind Brock Bowers in that team. And there's so many more I could talk about. I wanted to boil down the list, but these are names that I just thought I'd have to mention, because these are fundamental players who can win you leagues, win you matchups, and do really well for your team. But without further ado, let's get back to possibly the jankiest use of PowerPoint sheets that I have ever seen. We're going to do who's hot and who's not. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I got a bit of ASMR as I had a drink there. You'll see some boxes. these boxes. It's the best way I thought I could do. I can unveil who it's going to be, and we'll start off with who's hot. We'll go. You know, between the two, and we'll go position by position, and we've got a couple of flex players as well. But we'll start off with who's hot, and I might have almost mentioned him at the top, but my star buy and in the league winner category, it is this man, Michael Penix. Michael Penix Jr. is being drafted. Oh, I've already messed it up and spoiled who the next guy is. If you're watching on YouTube, you get a bit of spoiler there. But Michael Penix Jr., round 12, being drafted as a QB 21. Now, I think that stands for good value. And I'll tell you for why. And I'll go to the who's not and do a comparison here. In my who's not is someone who's drafted considerably higher. It's Caleb Williams. And you've got to compare the two. You really do. And I'm going to have a look at my notes across the two of them. But I do not see the difference in 9 positions in their ultimate value between them, QB12, QB21. Caleb Williams, you're drafting him 3 rounds earlier, full 3 rounds earlier. He's at 9-11 compared to the 12-11. You're getting the same player. You're getting a fringe QB1, potentially. A fringe QB1 at best for Caleb. I think a fringe QB1 at standard for Michael Penix. Have a look at my Penix notes here. I think his decision making is fantastic. Gives him really high floor. His rushing upside gives him every opportunity. For me, Caleb Williams is in my he's in my late value tier because I think there's too much risk around him. He invites pressure. He's done it all through college. Even when he's been playing well, he invites a load of pressure, and takes a lot of sacks as well. But you are getting stronger play calling out of him. But can we bypass everything we've seen of him in recent years and say, yes, he's going to be great because of all this? I don't think we can. And it's just not a player I'm really warming to. So if I had the opportunity to, draft Caleb in the 9th, I'm going to skip him and I'm going to pick Michael Penix 3 rounds later. Okay, already mentioned that I've kind of spoiled who the next guy is on my who's hot list here, and you know what, I'm going to come out and say it. It's someone who can score 6 touchdowns and get all the receptions. It is Alvin Kamara. He's currently a round 5 value. He's RB18. He's a superstar, and nothing will tell me otherwise. Yeah, people are writing him off because he's old. He's not that old. He's in his age 29 season, and the game he plays is more like a wide receiver. He's more like his production is far more like a back. He's a wide receiver / running back 1 in PPR formats, and people are saying, oh, he's going to be rubbish because of Tyler Shuck or because of the new regime over there. He's got Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore loves using fun weapons. If you can get a guy who is currently RB18, who is not going to finish RB18, with such upside in the 5th round, I would happily have him, and have had him in the past, even last year, as a running back 1 in my team. Now, let's face him off against who my RB and not category is. And it is Chase Brown, 2 rounds earlier. Now, this is an interesting position because a lot of these players I compared against the two. Chase Brown is currently being drafted as the RB10, so everyone's saying he's an RB1. Yes, he was an RB1 for the last 5 games of the season, but do we think really we can put upon him and all that? I think he's like a 4th or 5th round pick. I don't think we can necessarily. And compare him to Alvin Kamara, who's the draft capital, who has the money behind him, who has X, Y, Z, who has the production profile behind him. Who would you rather? And be honest with me. Would you rather Chase Brown at the 303 or Alvin Kamara at the 506? I know who's hot and who's not, and it's Alvin Kamara. It's got to be. And this is the difference. Do we see the opportunity to improve above their drafts? I've always said you can't win in the draft, but you can certainly put yourself in best position. The best way to do it is by looking at players who are going to outperform their draft capital. Okay. Wide receivers. Wide receivers are fun. Let's have a look. There are so many wide receivers on my list that I need to go through so many. But let's look at who, I like staying positive to start with. And I'm going to look at an old man who was maybe written off, wide receiver for the Patriots, Stephon Diggs. Yes, I know he didn't have a great season last year. He's being drafted in the 7th round. They're going to throw to him a lot because there's no one else to throw to. Yes, people are saying Carl Williams is a 3rd round pick. Really? He's going to come in there. Carl Diggs. Mix them both together. Stephon Diggs has been paid. He has got historic profile production. He is the slot guy. He is going to be a PPR monster. Tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, if you think about the players who are drafted around him, he's drafted not far behind Jakobi Meyers, who is in my honourable mentions. I think he's going to have a better season than Jakobi Meyers. He is drafted just ahead of Darnell Mooney, who we'll talk about in a bit maybe. Spoiler alert. Yeah, he's going to be great, and I can't see why people are sleeping on him so much. 7th round, great. Again, if I see him every time, especially when compared to Rashee Rice. Now, funnily enough, I wrote this before knowing about the Rashee Rice news, and he's received a 5-year suspended sentence or something like that, and he's most likely going to be suspended from the NFL for a good amount of time, probably 4 to 8 games. If I was to spin my roulette of punishments, but Rashee Rice for me, even beforehand, he didn't really have the profile for me, and he's being drafted in the 2nd round. Let's have a look at this. Drafted in the 2nd round. Wide receiver 12. Everyone's thinking he's going to be a wide receiver 1. Has he ever proven that? In a odd couple of games, maybe, but he can't stay on the field. And even still, I think his tree is very limited, and I don't think we're going to see such a limited offense. I think they need options. The Kansas City Chiefs need to evolve, to go back almost, to devolve, to having a spread offense where they can get it out to lots of different players. And I don't think Rashee Rice is going to be the guy they funnel everything through. I still think Travis Kelce will be the first option, and we'll get onto that in a little bit as well. But Rashee Rice for the 2nd round, no, you're not having him there. Other players you can have after him, I've already mentioned Marvin Harrison, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Jakobi Meyers. I think they all have better profiles. Stephon Diggs, at a push, does. And if I'm looking at the profile of my team, do I want to give up Rashee Rice for a 2nd or Stephon Diggs for a 7th? Easy pick. Tight ends. I've already talked about him just now. Travis Kelce, tight end 6. He's being drafted in the 8th round. Tight ends have just gone down. Unless you've got Brock Bowers, you've got Trey McBride or Kittle, probably in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round ish between those 3 guys, depending on what setup you've got. If it's tight end premium, it then drops. And if I can get Kelce, who, yes, he had a poor production last year, but he has proven year on year he's going to be great, and he's just like his brother. He's going to want to come out on a high. He's not going to want to come out and not perform. He's going to want to come out on a high. He wouldn't be Taylor Swift's boyfriend if he didn't want to perform. I think that's something I did there. I don't know, but and compare him to probably the tight end one this year. Probably, maybe at least top 5. Brock Bowers in the 2nd. Now, there isn't such a drop off. Brock Bowers was insane last year. There is going to be regression. I think he might score more touchdowns this year, but I don't think he's going to get nearly as many receptions because they've invested elsewhere in the wide receiver room, and they need to feed Genty. But you are damaging your team if you're drafting Brock Bowers in the 2nd, because you're missing out on so much. We did a mock draft the other day. If I had drafted a tight end early, what could I have done about my running backs? I would have been left with, I don't know, but I wouldn't have been able to get 3 wide receiver 1 opportunities. That's for sure. And that's the downside you're getting if you're drafting Brock Bowers in the 2nd. You're missing out on so much. But similar production, similar output at the end of the year, I want Kelce all day long, especially for a 6th round difference in where I'm taking them. Moving through, we've got 2 flexes then, and this round as well. I'll look at both of these guys at the same time. I've already talked about him a little bit, but Pat Bryant, I think, is a fantastic pick in the round 13, and Joe Mixon, to mix it up with the veterans as well. Joe Mixon's going to be great this year. In Dynasty, we're talking about selling him to selling him to contenders for potential first, maybe late round first, potentially. But either way, he is going to be fantastic this year. Even if it is just volume play, you want him. Pat Bryant has so much opportunity in an offense that hasn't really invested in the wide receiver room. You've got Cortland Sutton and... Yep, I'll hold. Anyone? Nope, I don't know either. Yep, Vele. Marvin Mims? Is he a thing? Pat Bryant is such a Sean... Oh, what's his name? Sean Payton player. He looks like Michael Thomas, and yes, it might be willing something upon someone, but I think he could be good. And even if he's not, 13th round, he's basically going undrafted. In my flex in the who's not, and we'll do the comparison here. Brian Thomas Jr., fringe first round player. James Cook, 4th round player. You compare those two guys. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. is not comparable to Pat Bryant, but Brian Thomas Jr., if you look at his performance, best with Mac Jones. Mac Jones isn't there. It's a new offense. It's a new scheme. All of this kind of stuff. And he was only great towards the end of the season. James Cook, his fantasy production is all based on 18 touchdowns. That's like 3,000% more than he's ever scored in any other season. Comparably, if I took another random name from my honorable mentions here, in the 2nd round, I could get Brock Bowers. I prefer Brock Bowers over Brian Thomas Jr. With that regard. But in the wide receiver market, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Godwin, I think have better outputs this year than Brian Thomas Jr., or at least as good, for a premium of 7 rounds. Do you really want to pay for Brian Thomas Jr.? I don't. And Cook, I think, will match up at the end of the season very well with Mixon. Cook is going into this season without a deal, or probably is going to go out there without a deal. And if I don't have a deal, who do I want? The guy who's performed year on year in arduous circumstances for the Bengals and for the Houston Texans, or do I want Cook, who's flashed for 1 season? I know who I want. I'm going to take the guy two rounds later. I'm going to take Mixon. So this is hopefully some food for thought, guys. I'm going to cut it there because I don't really need to say any more. And I'm hoping to produce more of these as we go through. But I love the idea of taking a who's hot and who's not and comparing the two in draft season and thinking about how it's made up, because that has led to me developing a list of players who I will never draft and a group of players who I will always draft. Now, I won't always draft these guys, but if I get the opportunity to sidle my way up to one of these guys, I'm going to take it. So I would advise you, if you're not already hot on them, go take a look at Penix, Kamara, Diggs, Kelsey, Bryant, Mixon. They might not be sexy names, but they have a lot of value behind them. And if you look at them comparable, and you are hot on these guys because there is so much noise around them, and maybe this is me getting out of the group think a little bit, but Caleb, is he going to be that guy? Is it just Ben Johnson hype? Are we going to see him go 4,000 yards? I don't know if we are. Chase Brown, is he just a flash in the pan? Rashee Rice, Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Cook, is it just hype? And I'm buying into the fact that it's just hype, and that you don't win a league on hype, you win a league on performance, and that's what I want out of my players. That's your lot, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope this gives you some food for thought for your future endeavors in your draft. If you like this, give it a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, notifications, I don't know. Well, you know what to do. I'm just going to mumble now. If you want to support the pod, you can get the tiers. The tier list sent right to your mailbox, so you can have a copy of it for your very self that you can edit as well. For as little as £1. If you want to support the pod long term, £1 a month. You can get some discounts on other stuff, including stuff that we produce here as well. So if you like this kind of stuff, follow us, Rugby with Pads, all the socials, rugbywithpads.com. That's where you can get your membership. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon on the Virtual Gridiron.